connection, engagement, rigor, success. Here on Coaching You Through All Things Education podcast, we are building a legacy of success together, one episode at a time, each Tuesday at noon. As your host, Anne Labangana Clay of ANC Unlimited, we will unpack relevant topics in education together. And when I'm not podcasting, coaching, or consulting, stop by our website, acunlimited.org, for our new blog, Coaching You EDU, and a menu of services. If something resonates with you during this episode, message me on the podcast app of your choice or leave a comment on LinkedIn, our company Facebook page, or on Twitter. Our guests appreciate your feedback. Check out the story notes for our social media details, and certainly, if you have an episode suggestion, send it to coachingallthingsedu@gmail.com. Now let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to episode 19 of Coaching You Through All Things Education podcast. I am ecstatic today to have Miss Kristina MacBury with us today. She is an administrator who is so passionate about what's best for her students and her passion for mental health, and has been a role model for me. I'm so excited to have her today. Welcome, Miss MacBury.
Thanks, Anne, and just so excited and honored to be chatting with you today.
Oh, thank you. Let's see. We're going to start off with our first question.
All right.
Can you tell our listening audience a little bit about yourself and why you are so passionate about mental health and wellness?
Sure. It's a loaded question. So, first and foremost, I'm a woman. I'm a mom of many children, a wife, a friend, a lifelong learner. I'm proud, I'm flawed, overly reflective most of the time, which gets me into some binds. I'm the definition of a silver linerist. I always can find the silver lining in things. I'm an advocate for all children and everything, as it relates to well-being and overall mental healthiness. I'm a leader. I'm an educator. I've been in education for just about a quarter of a century now, and educational leadership for about 18 years.
Yes.
I know, a long time, right? I often think back to, wow, where's that time has gone, And I'm just really passionate about mental health because I don't have the luxury not to be, with so many kids and being in education for so long and experience, I really recognize and have the privilege to recognize and know that mental health is critical to everything. My wife and I started Educate for Hope, which at the onset of that, we thought was going to be strictly educational leadership, which we're very passionate about. I believe that, strong leaders are able to have strong buildings, strong staff, strong school, and that they're really the center of everything relative to bringing in and bringing together the culture of a school and overall well-being. But, it's really developed into driving our passion for overall well-being, including at the leadership role, bringing in parents and students.
That's awesome. Oh my goodness. Just listening to you, I knew lots of those things about you, which is hence you're my role model. But, a lot of things that you shared are new to me. I didn't know enough about Educate for Hope, and I didn't know, really your career journey, to get to being in leadership. Ever since I've known you, you've been, in leadership, and to hear the path that you thought to get here, and just, I don't know. This is just
so an interesting journey. I'm telling you, and when I tell stories, people are like, "Wow!" I'm like, "I know," and it seems so long ago.
Yes. And it sounds like your life is so full. I mean, I love it. I didn't mention that before, but I know that you work really hard to balance life and work. You are passionate about both, and I hope you'll unpack a little bit more for that with us today. All right, number 2.
All right, what you got for me, Ann?
This is a tough one, so hold on. All right, the year 2020 has left no stone unturned when it comes to the impact on our mental health and our wellness. What do you think are the roots of how we might be feeling, and how can we deal with it?
That's a great question. Interestingly enough, when the school year started back in 2019, 2020, I hashtag now we can see 2020 was our, now you're seeing 2020 was our Sarah Pyle Academy hashtag for the year and our gimmick as we were moving into the 2020 school year. And wow, did 2020 hindsight really hit us right over the head. It couldn't have been truer. It was almost like foresight. If you're going to have a year like this, it might as well be a year like 2020. I think that the roots of what we're feeling, I mean, let's admit, we all know, and this is not new news, and you'll hear me say that, I'm sure a few times in our conversation, is that we're in the midst of a global trauma and its global impacts. We're all feeling the same thing. And trauma, just saying the word trauma, makes us anxious and we worry. And not all trauma, though, really impacts us, or doesn't have to impact us negatively. Just like the word anxiety. When we think about anxiety, we think, well, that's a negative thing and it's worrisome. And what do we need to do to mitigate that anxiety? But anxiety itself can be healthy. If we don't have a little bit of anxiety or worry when we're walking across the street, we might not look both ways. And we could potentially get hit if we're not being careful. And so it's really about how we're coping. And so the latter part of that question, really struck me with that. And so when we're thinking about this trauma, what is it that we're doing as educators, as parents, as, ourselves to really cope and mitigate? Because right now, as you said, we're really in the middle of a perfect storm. We're isolated. We're having this trauma. People are having severe anxiety. People have job worries, financial worries, worried about their physical health that has implications that now and into the future that we don't even understand. So, it is scary and worrisome and damaging to our health. And all of those things are primitive, right? So when we're isolated and not connected, whether it's physically or even connected over Zoom and phone, it's still not the same. So we're not getting our needs met. And so I think that, we really need to consider what things that this is also open for us. Like, even though we have all these negative things, we also have really, for most of us, because I can't assume that everybody did, it may have recalibrated some things for us and what's really important and what's good too. Like, I got to be honest, spending this time, especially in the spring, with 2 of our kids that are graduating this year, I'll never get that time back. It was awesome. We ate dinner every single solitary night together. And I have a greater appreciation for that time than I ever did. We were barely eating dinner one night a week as a family. And as you shared, I don't think I said at the beginning, we have 10 kids, 6 of which are in the house. And between wrestling, between football, between therapy appointments, between work, between doing sessions in the PM for school, between all of the things that happen, we barely saw each other. But for March, April, May, we barely didn't see each other. We never left each other's side. And that is a mitigating factor there. And something that as educators, we need to continue to remember, we have the power of these protective factors and coping. And we need to, if you're thinking of this as a scale, we have this big global trauma on one hand and all of these things on one hand.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are we putting on the other side to kind of balance out these scales? And what have we learned from this experience that potentially is positive that we can keep putting on the side of the scale that can balance out this negative feeling and this unrest?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Trauma, anxiety, at first when you started talking, I was feeling it, like you said, those words are impactful. But what I heard mostly is that we should be building solutions and we should be working on coping. You use the words, the power of protective factors, right? And immediately hearing protective, just gave me a sense of ease that I didn't have before. Greater appreciation, positivity, all those things that you mentioned, we have to see that in this. And although, I can't speak to, everyone's experiences in 2020, but I think I agree with you. We all have to look at the positives that have come out of that. Like you said, you've had so much time with family that you didn't have before. And so if we look at the positive instead of just the trauma and the anxiety and the negatives that we are all facing during this time, that we can turn things around and really turn and really go into a thriving mode. Am I not correct? Instead of
absolutely, Anne. And but I'd also be remiss. So I started off. I literally am a silver lining. I can find the silver lining in everything. But there's the other side of this too, is when we see a crisis, or if we are at a point where we feel hopeless ourselves. So sometimes it's hard to recognize a crisis in ourselves, that we reach out, that we connect. So the other thing that we can do is get really educated. And every single person matters, and no one should ever feel alone. So I think this would be a perfect time to say too, that, if people have where that scale is weighing too far to the left, in my eyes, the left, which would be the negative, and the right, when I think of the scales of justice, and how it typically is displayed. And, we have a 741 is the mental health hotline for chatting, and 988, you can call us a national hotline. I don't think it's across the United States, but definitely in our area, which automatically hooks you up to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which used to be 800-273-8255. And if you're like, oh my gosh, how do you know this? And how would you know? Get yourself trained, mental health first aid, reach out to NAMI. There's so many things that we can do proactively as well, and being educated.
You make some powerful points there, because just like you were able to spit those numbers off at the top of your head, we don't know as educators or just as our family members when someone might need those crisis lines. And so we need to become educated in so many ways. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really important for us to remember.
Thanks, Anne.
All right, we're on question number 3. What have you been doing personally to work on your own mental health?
So it's an ongoing evolution. And I can always do better. I think everybody can do better each day. And some days I'm fantastic at it, and some days I fail miserably. And I also believe implicitly in the power of modeling and how transformational that is in leadership and as a parent to model. And when we're modeling our mental health and just overall well-being, it doesn't necessarily just need to be mental health, because I think a lot of times when we think of mental health, we think that that's only for those who are mentally unhealthy, but we all have brains. That's our mental, and therefore we all have mental health. And this sprang up for me. I remember when my children were extremely young. I think they were like 4, 2, and not even 1, my biological children. And I was going through a lot of stuff, and was one of the first times I had gone to a therapist. I was really worried about my decisions and how that was going to impact them. And I felt like I was being super selfish. And I remember the therapist saying to me, the best way that you can demonstrate or show or put value on your children's happiness is by prioritizing your own happiness.
Amen.
And that stuck with me. and it's still stuck with me. And, as parents, aunts, neighbors, educators, just members of our community at large, we have people counting on us and a shared responsibility to model our healthiness. So, your question is, what am I doing? I try and give myself space, time with family, my wife, I breathe. But whatever it is I'm doing, I try and model it all the time. I am doing this because I am feeling this way. And it doesn't always work. It's funny. One of my kids was like, well, I don't think you weren't thinking about my happiness. And I was like, you're right. I was. I recognize you feel that way now, based on my decision in my story, but I really was. And I really thought that was the right decision for me and for you by doing that. But, you can choose how you feel about that as well. So it doesn't always work perfectly, but I think it's really important to be really mindful of that.
Mm-hmm. We have people counting on us. I think of the airplane example. I know it's cliche, but I do.
Me
right?
Too.
I never understood it at first. I really never got it. Like, I was like, why do we have to put our oxygen mask on before, I put it on my child who's, I love dearly, but you can't help anyone else until you take care of you, and thank you for opening up about therapy. We don't say it enough.
No, we don't.
Thank you also for bringing out that talking about mental health and wellness doesn't mean that there's something wrong. There could be something wrong, but it also means that we're trying to maintain a sense of healthiness. And so there are two sides to it, but the therapy piece, I really appreciate that. I don't think we talk about that enough, particularly as women. And I don't want to get off topic here, but I think as women, we try to bear everything. We try to hold everything on our shoulders, and we can't.
And we think it's so selfish. Like, when I say that, we're modeling, when I've given a couple of keynotes, I've used, what we feel is what we spill, and we can't spill from an empty cup. And I've had several people push back, not a lot of people, and about, how that's selfish, and how, we're adding too much pressure to ourselves, and self-care shouldn't really be about other people's care. And I do agree with all of that. But at the same time, the reality is, as women, we do take care of everybody. Absolutely. And so we're just fibbing if we're not, and for me, and where I am in my life's journey, and maybe it'll be different at some point, I know that if I'm taking care of myself, and that means I'm better for everybody else, that's my motivation. And maybe that's not the healthiest way to be, but that helps me do my best.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you're doing it. I mean, like I said, I watch you from afar, as a leader, as a parent, as a businesswoman. I see you in so many lights, and I know probably behind the scenes, you have a lot of things that you have to put in place in order for us to see those successes. But you are a living legacy, really, of doing it well. No, seriously, of doing it well. And so pat yourself on the back. Whatever you're doing behind the scenes is
I'm doing it because, if we don't do it to ourselves, we can't wait for other people to do it for us. Thank you.
There you go. You better tell the truth about that. We'll be right back with more from Principal Kristina MacBury. Dear teacher, do you need strategies and resources for individualized instruction, innovative lessons, small group instruction, or student engagement? We can help you with this and more. We have 26 years of teaching and consulting experience in pre-K through 12th grades, as well as experience in adult professional development. We design and present custom-made, self-paced online webinars, and in-person workshops for teachers and parents as well. We also provide lesson plan support, interview coaching, proven scholarship tips, and tutor referrals. And that's why ANC Unlimited is just that, unlimited. We offer quality work in everything we do, or we don't do it. So contact us today to help you take the stress out of education by visiting our website at acunlimited.org, or you can reach us via email at and c.unlimited4you@gmail.com. We look forward to connecting with you soon. We're back with more from Principal Kristina MacBury. Next question. As a school administrator, you have the awesome responsibility of being charged with the mental health and wellness of your entire school population, virtually and sometimes in a hybrid model.
Sometimes in hybrid.
Right? Depending on the week. We have to laugh about it, don't we? Mm-hmm. But what have been some challenges for you? And please share some of your successes.
Yeah. So, right off the bat, Sarah Pyle Academy, I mean, come on, it's a SPA, SPA. I mean, every day is a day.
Right, that's right.
It's already, better. But as my 12-year-old who keeps coming in asking me something, I have no idea what he's asking me. I'm like, I'm on a podcast. But anyway, he always says, oh, this isn't going to, I can't do this, or this is not going to affect me because I'm built differently. And I hate it when he says it, but I'm going to use this line. Sarah Pyle is built differently, and we were made for this kind of challenge, I think, because, our mission, vision, together inspiring lifelong success through personalization. Sarah Pyle teachers and staff in the school virtually can do anything, whether it's hybrid, in person, all day, every day, whatever. I mean, we literally trust, belonging, relationships, meeting people where they are, whether that's needs or teach or whatever it is. I mean, so when virtual started, remote started, we really had a leg up because we already had the trust from our families and our students in a different way. That they really believe that we had their implicit and explicit interest at heart. So that connection was already right there in order for us to move forward. So it's a huge success because we've been able to do things that many other schools with many more students and not having that kind of connection, even though they probably do have with many of their students, but not all the way we have. So that's been really awesome. Keeping our students in good habits, being able to think outside the box. So for this, we're on our second 6-week, going on our third, where our students are only taking 2 credits at a time. And so what that does for their anxiety, so they're focusing more on those 2 classes in advisory. So getting those 2 credits, they'll still be able to get their many more credits than they would get in a typical school year. But instead of bopping around to, 8-room Zoom rooms, because then we followed the data. We found that in the spring, our students were not successful engaging in all of their classes. So that's been very, very successful. Really? Challenging, however, it's been very challenging that, not having everybody face to face all the time. And then, but you don't have that all the time anyway, but it just seems all that more magnified. And then I have a really difficult time. I've been in Delaware now for 10 years, but I am still a hard-headed Philadelphian when I have to depend on others outside of my circle of influence. And that effect on my students and their overall well-being. I think we all, as educators, respect that everybody's at a different place in their evolution, and I have positive intentions. But like in times like this where I feel like we're not on the same page do what I believe. No, and I'm not always right. I might think I'm always right, but I'm not necessarily always right to get with the best interest of my students. And in my head, I'm screaming like, come on, just meet me halfway. We did not do this. A lot of times it's in protective factors, like adding protective factors. And so that frustrates me. And that has been a huge challenge. And then I think lastly, just trying to balance for my staff. I mean, my staff literally feel like the world, the weight of the world is on their shoulders. They're doing like you're doing, like we're all doing, we're balancing home, they're balancing their students. If they go to work and their kids are still at home when we're in hybrid and their kids are on remote, they feel like a bad parent. If they stay home and they don't go to school, then they feel like a bad teacher. Like they really can't win. Sure. And so just trying to align my policies to what I actually say is so important to me. And then that's been difficult as well. That's probably my biggest challenge.
Oh, I'm sure. You are the first administrator that we've spoken to, about our mental health series. And it's a different situation for you. You don't have a classroom just to think about, or a committee, maybe PBS, you don't run a PBS committee. You run the entire school. And I think that what you spoke about was really important. Pre-COVID-19, pre-pandemic, you had these relationships with your families of trust. You used a very important word that, I think has impacted everything that has happened for you in a positive way before everything, went down. So I think that that's a word that we don't use a lot. We talk about building relationships, but when that trust is there, whether it be your families, whether it be your students, whether it be your your educators under your leadership, that's everything.
It is.
That's everything. Systems in place, absolutely. That's great, but if that trust allows for everything else to fall into place when, pandemics hit, et cetera. So thank you for sharing that.
Thanks, Anne.
Our next question for our educators, our parents, our students out there listening today, what are 3 tips or strategies you have for us to improve our own mental health and wellness?
So, I do have another book that's due to come out at some point. So it was supposed to be called Happy Schools, and now it's, I think it's going to change to the model in the school, which is ARM. So I think it's going to be arming leaders instead. But I talked about it in the trauma-informed practice or to opening up schools that Pushing Boundaries had put out. Acknowledge and awareness, reflection, model, and manifest. And I do this all the time, and it's really applicable to everything. And we do it as the school community, not necessarily call it out specifically, but I think that before we can do anything, we just always have to acknowledge where we're at. So and how are we feeling? Are we acknowledging whether it's, as a school, but as a parent in the frame of the question, does my child feel anxious? Am I feeling anxious? Am I excited? Am I sad? And then reflect on why I might feel that way, or things that I have done in the past that have made me feel better. Am I not eating enough? Am I not, eating breakfast? Am I not drinking enough water? And then go into that model word that I bring up all the time, so feeling this one, feeling anxious. So I'm going to go for a run. And then manifesting, go for that run, and then taking the time to go back and reflect on what you've done and how that impacted you. So, next time whether you should do that same thing or do something different. But while we're doing that in terms of the strategies, for me, the top 3, I would think would be breathing. Sounds so simple, but a really long, thoughtful breath in with a equally as long exhale does amazing things. It triggers so many responses. The book Burnout, Burnout, Burnout. I cannot remember the names of the authors. They're sisters. It's amazing. Brene Brown did a podcast with them about how to close the emotional cycle, and why so many of us take on the physical ailments of mental stress and otherwise, and how one of the things that resonated so much for me was the effect of breathing. We know that, but we don't do it enough, and how that closes that emotional response for us. It triggers that we're safe. It triggers that, our blood pressure can come down. We can refocus, we can rethink, and we just don't do it enough. And then being educated. I can't say it enough. NAMI offers free trainings, mental health first aid trainings. In Delaware, you can get many of them for free. They're specifically targeted towards parents, by educators, for youth programs, for anything corporate or otherwise, so that and you're not guessing. And it really normalizes and destigmatizes. And then, another favorite author of mine, Gabby Bernstein, don't judge and give grace. Don't judge yourself.
Yes.
It's so easy to do, and don't judge others just because, as I said earlier, people may be in a different place in their evolution cycle than you are. And that's okay. Everybody needs to be somewhere in that cycle.
Right.
And then you might make mistakes. You might not do the right thing. You might feel crappy and just want to, say, forget it today, or whatever, and give yourself grace. It's okay, because we're going to make mistakes. And if our kids are never going to learn that mistakes are okay, if we're constantly penalizing ourselves for making mistakes, no matter what kind they are.
Whew, those are 3 tips that I'm already jotting down on my journal, because, and the last one I particularly am fond of and have had to learn over time about giving grace.
Did you read Judgment Detox by Gabby Bernstein?
Oh, no, I did not.
Another awesome book.
I list too. That and the Burnout are on my list as well.
What I love the most about Judgment Detox was that, and this again, super resonated for me, is when we judge other people, it's probably because whatever it is they're doing or saying or acting that bothers us is a reflection of what's really about us. And I was like, dang, how'd she know?
Right. As some people like to say ouch if it applies.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That applies to me big time, but that's awesome. Thank you for those recommendations. And my final question of the day is trending on the show. If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what legacy message would you print on it, and why?
So I don't think anybody listening would have any doubt that I would have just one, that I would have like 50, because Lord, can that girl talk? I think that I have a mental health one targeted, a overall life one, and a sarcastic one. So which one would you like?
I would like all 3.
All right.
If I can, let's have all 3 for our listeners.
Which order would you like?
Let's start with the mental health. How's that?
All right.
We'll have the sarcastic, then we'll have the life. Is that okay?
That's great. I think that for mental health in general, you matter, you're not alone, you're loved. I don't think people hear that enough, especially when they're suffering.
No, indeed. Indeed.
And so I said the sarcastic one already while we've been talking, and it's something that drives me crazy. This is not new news. It really frustrates me when, it happens all the time in politics, or when we make a decision or put somebody in a place, or, we hire a teacher, or we don't do something for a student, and then we expect a different outcome. Like, this is not new news. We didn't give them any additional support. What did we expect to happen? And it always frustrates me. Like, did we really expect something different to happen? That's going to go on my tombstone, I think.
Oh, you're very passionate about that too. Okay.
It's so frustrating. But I think my overall life one is love wins, happiness counts, and gratitude guides.
Okay.
I'm in 3s. I'm into 3s right now.
No, that's okay. I think people remember things better in threes also. So there you go.
Isn't that the truth?
Yes. Oh, wow. Well, I have been quite delighted today to listen to all of the wisdom that you have shared with our listening audience. And I really appreciate your time and energy on this topic. And particularly, I couldn't have continued in this series without you sharing what you know and letting our audience take a little peek inside to what really matters when it comes to mental health and wellness. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks, Anne. And I really do enjoy learning alongside you. I love seeing you on Twitter. I'm always retweeting and commenting. You're a joy and you're an inspiration as well. And so like-minded, and it's just so nice. There's so many people like us in Delaware. We're such a small state, and I just love the passion and the momentum that's going into doing right by all of our kids, all of our families, and for mental health awareness. I mean, it's huge, and it's growing, and it's hopefully going to be that mitigating factor that's going to help all of us continue to be healthy as we move into 2021.
And we look forward to that time, don't we?
Amen.
Oh, well, thank you. And you have a wonderful, awesome, fantastic rest of the day.
You too.
All right. Thank you.
Be well, friend.
Yes, you too. Well, that concludes another episode of Coaching You Through All Things Education. As Confucius states, those people who develop the ability to continuously acquire new and better forms of knowledge that they can apply to their work and into their lives will be the movers and shakers in our society for the indefinite future. Again, you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, or you can also find us on our Facebook page, A&C Unlimited. As a reminder, for a free consultation in any area of education that you choose, for educators, administrators, or parents, please visit acunlimited.org. Until next time, stay stress-free and be well. Hello, this is Anne Labangana Clay, your podcast host for Coaching You Through All Things Education, as well as the founder of ANC Unlimited. I absolutely love using Anchor as my home. Let me tell you why. First of all, the creation tools allow me to record and edit my podcast right from my phone or my computer. Second of all, Anchor will distribute my podcast for me so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course now iHeartRadio. The third reason why Anchor is my home is because there is no cost to me when I create. So I can create as many episodes and bonus episodes as I choose for my listeners. So my suggestion is that you sign up today at Anchor FM and start your own podcast. I'll see you Tuesday.